keep in mind, Dave.
All right, so we have Gukesh versus Caruana in the 24 Olympiad. Okay, so D4, knight f6, C4, E6. So now we have a Catalan opener. D5, bishop G2, knight C6. Yeah, this is interesting that he's blocking a C pawn. A lot of innovative responses to the Catalan. So then, yeah, normally, as I was just saying, normally you go C6 or C5 to strike back or to stabilize like a Slav. But this bishop will really put a lot of pressure. So we'll look at how that plays out. Knight C6, knight F3, rook B8. Now that's a funny looking move, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, very definitely. This is the epitome of the mysterious rook moves. Let's see what he has in mind. Well, I'm imagining there may be something with captures coming. If there's like a capture you could take back. Let's see, maybe there's B5. And it's also just kind of prophylactic. I mean, you can.
And it could be just psychological too.
Maybe. Yeah, hopefully it works in his favor because he's breaking rules.
Yeah.
He's breaking two rules. It's very interesting. Stick your in front of the C pawn in a queen's gambit. And two, move your rook, and it's not even doing anything instead of developing.
Well, maybe that's why he lost. I'm sorry.
No, maybe. Well, let's see what this yields out of the opening. So C takes D5, bishop check. Okay, bishop B4 check, knight C3, pawn takes pawn, bishop G5. So you could kind of see that white has a pretty fluid game for Gukesh. Ready to castle, pin the knight. Pressure on D5, but this mitigates the pressure, the pin on the C3 knight.
See, I would go right up to A3 and run him away.
Yeah, you could do that. But then again, it costs you some time. So you might not even want to mess with that. Let's see. H6. Well, he does what you had in mind, right? Of kicking the bishop. So he takes. Now, keep in mind, whenever, like I said, it costs some time. So Caruana spends some time on H6, and he takes anyway. So what's the development? Okay, well, white's castled. So basically 3 pieces out each. Not pawns pieces, right? They both have one pawn. 3 pieces each, neutral center. And white is ahead 1 tempo, as he was. Half a move, right? As he was from the beginning with white. So takes, castles. That's an interesting moment. Now, Caruana did not wait to be provoked with A3, be induced to take. He just took voluntarily. I would do that generally if it doubles the pawns like a Nimzo Indian.
So I don't even understand why you want to give up a piece that value just to get that, knowing you're going to get taken right back. I never understand that concept. Why they do that unless they. I mean, I don't understand it. That's why.
You mean specifically? You mean a bishop for a knight, or just
why
this trade?
Right here, yeah.
Well, you're so the Jeremy Silman method or as he describes it, of creating imbalances. You create an imbalance to try to outplay your opponent. Now, it doesn't mean you have an advantage yet. You try to turn that imbalance of, well, in this case, funny enough, it's actually not knight against bishop. It's still bishop against bishop. But a lot of times you'd be giving up your bishop, and they would have the bishop pair, right? So you're creating an imbalance. Now, also we have a shift in pawn structure. So we're going to see how that plays out. Technically,
yeah, I can see that creating imbalances. So
yeah, he's creating them. But funny enough, yeah, normally like in a Nimzo Indian, you would take and you would give them the bishop pair. But now they just both have a bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could just say that Gukesh is a little more comfortable out of the opening, but nothing substantial. Now, there's a little bit of imbalance in terms of the pressure on the D5 pawn. So technically, white has the quote good bishop because black's bishop's on the same color as the central pawns. That basically defines a bad bishop. Now, obviously, here it's not terrible. It's not like a bunch of pawns blocking. But this bishop, in other words, this could be used to target his opponent's pawn in the center, and this can't. And let's say, I think it ends up on E6. It lacks mobility.
Right.
So this is the nuance, just the smallest nuance. Also, B takes C3. It is a weakness, theoretically. So what if black goes C5 later? It can bear down on the C file. That previously wasn't really, well, then white would have had the pressure on the C file, coming with the knight and stuff. So let's see. So takes, castles. So very close game. Let's see how this develops. Now, a lot of people, especially, I know it just happens to a lot of my adult students, they'll say, if they're reaching out to me, they'll be like, I don't know what to do coming out of the opening. If you have kind of a static position, so many people don't know what to do in this kind of position, right? What should I do? Should I bring out randomly my rook? Probably not a terrible move, but you need to have a clear plan. And that's where you want to, create imbalances, work with the imbalances to outplay your opponent and maximize your forces. So you certainly can't go wrong with bringing out a rook or something, but you want it to be part of a concerted effort. So what is he doing with knight g2? Well, it's actually pretty obvious. He's attacking the d pawn. If you don't do anything, he's just going to take and come back maybe. So then he does the same thing. He maneuvers, well, the same idea. He maneuvers his knight, retreats it to guard, but Gukesh is the attacker. Caruana is the defender. Very nice and tight. Nice and tight. E3, supporting the d4 pawn. Now let's think about what he might want to do next after, okay, bishop e6. I don't think he can do it yet, but there's something that he wants to do now. When does he do it? He carries this out actually in like 6 moves. But there's a concept. Keep in mind with both knight d2 and e3 support this strike later. Do you see what kind of strike white might want to do in the center?
Yeah, I think that he might want to move the knight, shift the knight up to where he came from, f3, and then back over maybe to I don't know, h3, and then f3, and then back eventually to h5. Maybe because the queen is already aimed at that way, so I don't know.
Over here?
Yeah. Well, yeah, here and then there, and then no, maybe not.
Especially if you can get there, but as you can see, he doesn't really have that many forces looking there, and the pawns are actually aiming this way, right? So interestingly, actually, maybe Caruana wants to do that because he could get his bishop in, he could shove his h pawn. If you look at it from his side, maybe he'd be the one, right? Probably mostly in the form of like some bishop invasion later on and a pawn push or something like that, knight coming in.
Oh, yeah.
You never know. He might like sack his knight or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
So there are some
from this perspective, it looks like Caruana is a little bit has an advantage, but I guess he doesn't.
Well, he'd have to make something of that. That's the imbalance. Like, okay, so technically, if you play c6, your pawn chains ending that way. I don't know how much that means. It happens in a Caro-Kann exchange variation, just to get in the to get technical. But basically you end up with the c6 pawn when you play Caro-Kann. You're looking this way and white's looking this way a lot of times. So technically, yeah, generally speaking, you play where your pawns are aiming. But you look at the board, say, where can I make a break? Where can I unleash? Now, when I say break, I mean pawn break. Where can I strike with my pawn? Now, I suppose you could go for e4. He actually does end up getting, that's what he actually goes for. But I was thinking also c4. 2 options that he has. So probably when he goes e3, he's already, okay, let's say Caruana does something random like king h8. You can probably go c4. Takes. That doesn't look so bad for Gukesh. So he unleashes his bishop, his knight's roaming. He's got these files to use for the rooks. He has a really nice state. Look at that. He's got 2 central pawns. He can always advance them more too. Just imagine those pawns can become really strong and avalanche in the center, right? Bishop aiming on the diagonal, rook using the b / maybe queen / rooks using the b and c files. So you imagine kind of a dream position where you have a lot, and you could play knight e5. Let's say b5 would be a pretty bad move strategically, positionally, because then you would be able to plop your knight on e5, and you're also aiming at the weakness on c6. You see, just like take c3, that's a weakness there. Nobody's reaching it. But here you can see that becomes more accessible via a5 or e5. That square, that's really going to be a problem. You could target the pawn, c-file pressure for sure. So yeah, for example here, that does not look good for Caruana, right? You can pile up on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So he goes bishop e6. So you see he's hampering this idea of c4. Queen a4. a6. So he's full of tricks. Again, you see that he's probably trying to achieve it. Again, he's supporting it 1-2 times because there are 2 on it. Black is looking through the pawn a second time. So that's why pushing wouldn't work. Probably don't think he'd want to do that. You just lose the pawn, and maybe he can support the pawn later. But you probably lose the pawn if you push right away. It's possible, but point is he wants to just play it comfortably, not worry about losing the pawn if you could, right? Like the position we just looked at where you get something like this. So with queen a4, a6, there's another kind of some poison in there. It's like a poisoned push, basically. So take. Do you see the little trick that Caruana would do? It seems that it works, yeah. What's the trick that Caruana would have after knight takes c4? Look at it from Black's perspective here. Just a tactic.
After knight takes what?
in this position, let's say he were to really try to commit to the c4 push after pawn takes and knight takes, it just wouldn't work because you have to anticipate your opponent's, let's say we're playing for white, anticipate your opponent's tactics. So what does black have here? Can you find a tactic?
Let me look real good.
Checks, captures, and threats. Checks, captures,
Check,
threats.
captures,
I'll
and
pause it.
he could probably push the B pawn
Oh,
to
there you go. There you
B,
go. Exactly.
yeah,
You see,
B5.
you see it as well, Nicole?
Yeah.
Just play b5. You forked it. So this is one of those interesting scenarios where it's not there yet, right? It's one, it's half moves. It's going to be one here. That's why he does the other one, right? 1, 2, 3, fourth move. And then we, okay, on fifth, sixth, you win the knight. But you can already see on the fourth move, you're going to get the knight, right? So you have to see this kind of thing when you're anticipating, oh, should I play c4? Well, of course, Caruana sees it. That's why he plays this sneaky move. By the way, he is just straightforward and just straightforward guarding his pawn, right? That maybe he wants to take. I'm not sure. I mean, he can escape. So it is guarding the pawn, and it's also, I guess I'll call it a poisoned push, right? If you place it, usually it's a poisoned pawn. That'd be the question about taking the A pawn, but it's like a poisoned push. So you have to anticipate that. Yes, strategic idea. You want to break, you want to get some play. Maybe no immediate tactics, just activity, right? And
Mhm.
get center. But here he's not letting him do that. So he's like, okay, fine. You were really stopping me. Okay, I'm going to hit you the other way. So one way or the other, he needs to get his activity.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
does the computer say? Does the computer want to commit? The computer is like rook fc1, c6, queen b4. It's not getting, is it even getting a break in? It's looking for black getting a break. So you can see on this little thumbnail on the right, it's not, yeah, basically no, because black, it's anticipating black's best move to go b5. So basically that black really doesn't want to see white going c4. Why not? I mean, why would you, right? That gives a ton of activity to Gukesh. So of course he understands that, anticipating your opponent's plans and in carrying them out, any tactics that might arise. So this is where black sets a trap. He doesn't fall for it. Of course, he's like one of the best players in the world. It's possible, but yeah, these guys are both like top 5. So e4, so you see some of the best chess here. So that's interesting. He strikes back, c5.
Mhm.
Sneaky, okay, queen a3, huh? Sneaky move.
Mhm.
Oh, he's eyeing the knight on e7. So he's trying to,
Mhm.
you see how he could decoy the queen from the knight if you
Yeah.
take. So he doesn't take. That would probably be a blunder. And now it's white who's setting a trap. Lots of booby traps in this position, lots of mines. So what would white do to win the knight based on the defense of the queen or by the queen?
Push the E pawn.
Oh, you're on fire. Yeah, some days, Lynn, you're just like boom. Like when you're on, you're on. You just like
When
see
I'm on,
like
I'm on.
when you're on, you're just like seeing it like a machine. I mean, you're always on, but like some days you just when you're like participating, like just like boom, 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 just seeing it like a machine, right? So or like Gukesh
I mean,
saw.
that would distract them. Yeah. For
Yeah, well now
sure.
if they take, you take the knight. If they move away, you're still gonna force it. No, now this is hanging. Actually, you could play knight f3. That way you guard the pawn and you move the knight, and there's no way to defend, and then you just win a piece and you run away.
Yeah.
They could take, maybe that's the best move, try and get some compensation, but it's still a piece, still a piece up. Stuff, there's some work to do. Okay, both compensation. So queen a3, he realizes he can't take, therefore he plays b6. Now, are you going to go for that pawn? Is it poisoned? I don't know. Might be interesting. What's he do instead? Instead, he plays rook. He just chooses to apply pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a wise choice.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, if you go for this pawn, well, you're probably hanging your d pawn. Take, take, take. Probably black can just do this, and then it's equal.
Boy, and then your knight is hanging too.
Yeah, I mean, you can move it away easily.
He can
But,
move, yeah.
but I think that Gukesh just doesn't get much there. It's probably why he didn't take just like go, kind of hastily take the pawn, patiently bringing out the rook. And like I talked about earlier, it's a natural move. You just do it when it's called for. So then he takes on c5. What a messy position. Suddenly it's very messy there. It's like a junkyard of pawns all over the place. So yeah, this is defended. So it looks like white's winning a pawn now. There's just pressure everywhere. There's pressure here, maybe unleash the bishop on the a2 pawn. This is hanging on b6, a6 is hanging. Yeah, it's crazy, huh? If you move your queen away, you have to watch out for c3. And yeah, these are weak pawns though. Pressure on e4. So let's see what he does. So he plays d4. Computer, I'm just curious what the computer says. Computer says you should just, oh, it's second best move. You want to just take back. And then it's saying trade rooks. And then just like bring out your rook or take on c5. That gets, yeah, it's super messy. Okay, just once in a while, let's check what, just to see what it thinks about it. All right. So we have rook e8, rook f8, pawn takes pawn, d4. Okay, bypass. Now there's a threat on c3. So he bypasses that. It's a really tight game.
Mm-hmm.
Queen g5, a lot of maneuvers. Now this is a super dynamic. So keep in mind the dynamism versus what's the equivalent? Dynamics versus static play. So there are a lot of dynamics here, especially right now. When you take on c5, everything's hanging, everything's blowing up. But then after d4, okay, still dynamics. c4, queen g5, it's quieted down a bit. See, then he makes a calm move like, okay, you attack the knight, I defend it, I bring out a piece, takes back. Still some dynamics, but it's not as intense as it just was. The volume's down a bit, right? Goes f4, queen goes away. So hey, I mean, white is building an initiative though. So he's okay. Both players have all the pieces out. Pretty much even in that sense. But now white is creating a lot of mobility in the center with tempo, right? What were the tempos? Okay, effectively, well, there's pressure here, make him react. So takes, make him react. Okay, okay, now it's black's turn. Does what he wants. Okay, he goes for this counter. Defends. Okay, but then now it takes back. Now it's white's turn to put pressure. It's kind of taking turns, putting pressure on each other. But then after f4, attack the queen. f5, attack the queen. Now don't get tempo just for the sake of it, but you want to get something productive out of this after this f pawn. Because of course you move your f pawn, it opens up your king more. It's very useful to have. By the way, we've seen this, right? The fianchetto, how it guards the. If you don't have that fianchetto there, your king is really opening up. But that the bishop kind of acts like a substitute for a pawn in a way. So you still have some guard, right? So it's an important concept to keep your king guarded with some pieces if you push your pawns. So it's not just stripped of shelter. So f5 tempo. Okay, trades, got to take back. A lot of counterplay. Computer's saying it's like about even, only slight edge for white. So pretty much an even game. Okay, takes c6. Well, again, now we get dynamic again, hanging pieces. So he says, all right, you take my bishop. I take your knight. You take my f pawn. I have to take it. Okay, so now black is the one whose king is kind of exposed, but it's not as bad as it looks in terms of the king. I mean, the king will be okay. So now now we're in a whole new phase. Well, Rowson talks about in the seven deadly chess sins, talks about how the game could be like, well, speaking of seven, it might be like seven phases or something, but not 3 phases, opening, middle game, end game. Because you might have like a couple phases of the middle of the opening, maybe, and now we're like in a later middle game, right? We're kind of in a late middle game. We've got 3 attackers each. So where would the next, so there was one phase, like probably when the break actually occurs, right? So static to dynamic. Then we have all these things going on, trades, opening lines, maybe closing lines a bit. Okay, and then after this happens, little skirmish, then hanging pieces, we trade the pieces, and again, stasis for the most part, right? There's no hanging. Well, there's a hanging pawn. He grabs the pawn. King goes to g8, and see, now we have stasis. There's nothing immediate that either side can do. I mean, you could toss in a check. That's not really consequential, but you do see how both kings are a bit exposed with the f pawns missing. Yeah, it's like Ben Feingold says, never play f6. Sorry,
never play f7 and f2.
But I play f4 and move 1. So
yeah, you have to do it sometimes, but
yeah, it depends. You just have to know what the risk you're taking. Well,
right.
Yeah, but e4, e5, f4. But here it just happened. They thought it was the best way to play. I mean, f4, f5. But you can see that basically Caruana is like, okay, well, let's create some dynamics. Trade that off, and now we both have open kings, and your bishop's not as good as it was. Maybe can't do anything if you push the pawn. It's really complicated. 2, 3, 4, 5. But ultimately, what just happened is he snatched the c pawn. So there's a big imbalance. There's just a whole extra pawn for white. And I think that might actually win the game. Well, look, you have 2 passed pawns versus 1, right? It doesn't matter if there's a piece. There's no pawn that can stop it. So those are passed pawns. The black has 1 passed pawn. So he does have 2 passed pawns. Both of them have slightly open kings. The bishop helps to guard it. Yeah, also keep in mind that the black king has light square weaknesses around it because there's no F pawn in the H pawn move. So just imagine, you know, E5. So kind of dream position would be to get in here, maybe like have the queen coming in, you know, rook F1 and have a mate on H somewhere in there. So yeah, he has to watch out for that. All right. So yeah, it's a new phase. So we have material differences. We have bishop against knight. Do you guys see anything else? Any other imbalances? That's just kind of breaking down the imbalances. And again, then we determine if someone can utilize them. I mean, obviously, pawn up is an advantage. It doesn't mean you're winning, but it's funny enough, the computer, once again, it's only giving plus 0.3, which is nearly parity. Because there's just so much going on here. The pawn is not going to win on its own. I mean, both kings are exposed. The pieces are going to be flying around. So you have to prove that you have something with that pawn. So basically, white really wants to keep, again, I think a lot of this game is about dynamism versus stasis. And so, yeah, Gukesh really wants to have some static situation, trade down, and just have like maybe a good bishop versus knight endgame where the bishop could sweep the board. Bishops are good, known to be really good when there are pawns on both sides. Could sweep because it could sweep so quickly across the board. Knight's more cumbersome. And then just use the extra pawn, shove it down, maybe activate the king, shut down black's D pawn and win. Yeah, so Caruana needs to win a pawn back or create enough counterplay. But keep in mind that is a strong pawn. It's dangerous.
Yes, it is.
It's much more advanced. It can get to D3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
He does. Look at that. You can see it in foreshadowing D3, D2, right? Oops. Let's go back. So let's see how he makes that happen. Yeah, so but like I said, it's like a new game right now. So you should get some water, get up, get some water, whatever. Take a deep breath, come back, say, all right, whatever happened. I can't let that affect me, right? I can't get anxious about anything. I just need to say, look, this is my new game. This is like phase 4, phase 5, right? But like, especially as you get into an end game, it doesn't matter, stack of peas, you know, whatever, you made a blunder, whatever it is, right? This is your position now. I would call this like a late middle game, kind of transitional phase. You trade one more piece, you're definitely in an end game, right? But the kings definitely can't come out yet. There's still a lot of middle game play going on, a lot of strategy attacking play going on. A lot of it's about passed pawns, knight versus bishop. So do you guys see any other imbalances? I mentioned a few.
Well, I think E6 definitely is a weakness. Because the queen can work its way there. I mean, because everything else is kind of static. So the queen can work its way there and run the king over there. And then he could eventually come down to F7. And a few more moves, he may win the game.
Well, and I mentioned in here, light square, so you're extending to E6. And well, I mean the whole like I mentioned with E5, maybe the bishop comes in too. So it's E6 and beyond, right?
Yeah.
F7. So, and as you're saying, E6, maybe it reminds me of a Bobby Fischer Spassky round 6. He gets that pawn in there, you know, he shoves the pawn into E6, and then there's like a rook, I think. There's like a bishop on C4 supporting the pawn, which supports an invasion of rook. Even though he's down in exchange, his rook's better. I love that when you're down in exchange, they have the rooks, you only have one, but your rook is better than theirs anyway. So, and then beyond that, you have really good minor pieces. So yeah, if you can achieve that bishop, I mean, you could probably get there with bishop D5 later on. So F7 is a target, look through D5, E6, G8. So yeah.
This point, F7 is the focal point.
Which is the focal point?
F7.
F7 slash
for white.
Both of these, I'd say.
Okay, so H7 and F7.
Right, and that's part of the reason, one of the benefits of rook F1. So you're covering F7 and F8, so that's creating a mating net, right? So again, in a dream scenario, you'd have a battery on the diagonal and come into H7 and checkmate. They're gonna have to watch out for that. You also have, that's actually, there's a bunch of, G7 could definitely be, if you get there, if you anchor in the rook, which is not that easy to do. Let's say you have like a little haven for your king on H2 or something. And then you can target G7 also. You can imagine some queen.
Well, you got to be careful with the rook because, you know, his queen is down there too. And you don't want to get mated on the back right.
That's where it gets really complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the game actually only went 46 moves. Right now we're on move 27. So
Oh,
it didn't go
wow.
that much. So we're more than halfway. What are we at? Yeah,
So
more than halfway
I,
through.
I,
So
I
yeah.
wish I could see the
So
whole thing.
what's that?
I said, I wish I could see the whole thing because I'm about ready to go now, David.
Oh, you got to go at one.
Before, a little bit before one.
Okay, well let's flip through it, but let's see. But I think we have a good understanding of like of this transitional phase, the imbalances and how they're handling it. Okay, now we have a new, again, this is very important, I think, to understand. We had all these dynamics, and these are, super grandmasters working through these really complicated lines. And look at that, they're down. They went from 90-minute game, now they're down to 7 minutes, 8 minutes down, and 14 minutes for Gukesh and Caruana, respectively. So yeah, Gukesh is probably in a bit of time pressure, but he does get the 30-second increment. Okay, so let's look at this new phase real quick. Tell me if you got to go, but you got a few minutes?
Just maybe 3 or 4.
Okay, I'll finish it, but we can always review a couple things after you head out, but we'll get it down. And you see now rook f7 becomes a real problem. Actually, there's the g8 target. If the rook has to move away, they drop the knight. So you're kind of coming through the light squares. Then you have other targets like g7 or dark squares. But the light squares are your axis. That's your invasion points. So queen e3 check, king h1, d3. There it is, right? So he's not giving him a break. Computer says like even right now. Well, maybe it's that he stirs up enough counterplay that white doesn't get to do what he wants. He doesn't get to utilize that extra pawn. Okay, he's utilizing his bishop. There you go. Look at that e6 square you mentioned. Okay, looks nice and all, but you don't want to let him get a queen. Very smart though. Bishop g4, so he's defending and attacking, covering d1, queen d3. Okay, now black clearly has an initiative, at least for now. Could dry up, but definitely there's some initiative now. Aiming at the rook. Okay, rook. He guards it. Oh, there you go. Now there's the pawn back. So because of his good play, it yielded a pawn. We're at parity again. Okay, a4. Now it says dead even. Queen c6, queen d4. And then it says he blunders. Does he find it? He does. Rook f4. That's a tricky move. Okay. I think he wants to get bishop f5 in soon enough.
But why did the queen go there? He just trying to block for the king? Because that is a blunder.
Well, I think part of it is he knows rook f7 could come, so it's preemptively guarding all that, stopping rook f7, guarding g7,
Okay.
targeting this still.
Okay.
Oh, it is a target. It is a tempo though. It keeps getting tempos. Tempo on the knight. I mean, tempo on the rook. Tempo on the bishop. Pass pawn stuff going on. Checks. So if nothing else, he's just stirring up trouble. But it says you should have just gone here instead. That was the way to go.
Yeah.
But yes, it is this. I'll just fast forward.
Because he's using a very important piece just to block.
Yeah.
And guard.
Yeah, you don't want your queen. You don't want to make your queen like have those functions. She's destined for greater things. Well, by the way, she is walking into a very dangerous diagonal.
Yeah.
So that kind of doesn't bode well.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see she's not getting pinned right now, but it's still a prospect of bishop f5. Okay, rook goes to f4, queen goes to g5. So now it's giving him 3 points ahead as if white's up a piece. Let's see why. H4, queen runs. Oh, she has to run back again. Part of the reason behind rook f4, stabilize there, be able to play h4. Queen g6. Oh no, there goes the counterplay pawn. Now he's up a pawn again, but 0 counterplay. So that's pretty much telling you kind of a harbinger what's happening, right? Okay, now black's position is very exposed. I'll just fast forward for you. Tries to trade down, and he does take that. He does take the queen. Goes for the trade because look, I'm up a pawn. Again, bishop against knight's good. Oh wait, does he win the h pawn? Yeah, he does. I mean, again, Caruana is hoping to just continue this pattern of creating a lot of counterplay, but generally speaking, rook and bishop are really good. They work well together. Okay, there's a tempo. Nice and embedded on b5, guards a4, pressure on the knight. Now he'd be happy to take that, go into a 4 versus 2 endgame. Oh, actually, he just gives up. Yeah, he gives up, and there we are. In 2 moves. Rook, that looks very dangerous with the diagonal and stuff.
Oh, wow. He resigns.
In 1 more move, yeah. Rook e6. This little move makes him resign. Yeah, I guess he knows, he's down 2 pawns. I think he kind of knows that Gukesh is going to finish him off. Computer gives a +4. You could see a sample line. Computer's like, okay, let's say g6. Rook goes here. But it's 2 pawn. I mean, it's 2 clean pawns up. He could have played on, but I guess he was sick with him. He was just like felt a little sick or something.
Yeah, I guess he did.
And then H5. So things like this, right? Check. Oh, then he loses the knight. So he can't even take. That's the idea. So like he guards, and yeah, that's just very dangerous.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
you can
He
pawn.
just clean up all of his pieces and then
Yeah,
mark them down and get a queen. And
mop it up. Yeah, mop it up, pass pawn. Really nice bishop guarding, and then this pawn later on might fall, the a5. So that you're going to see the superiority of the bishop over the knight. Fischer's done that a lot. Open position, bishop can corral the knight. You see the knight has no way to approach the queen side. He's about to fall here. Yeah, so it's he can see the writing on the wall. Well, I'll let you go then. I know you got to go, Lynn, and then
all right.
debrief.
Thank you very much. I will
Thank-
try to chime in with you next Monday.
Sounds good. Sounds good. See you next.
All
Yeah,
right.
for
Thank
however long you can come. Nice job. Yeah, you were on fire. So nice work.
All right, David.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take
Goodbye,
care.
Nicole.
All right, bye. Nice seeing you.